Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. I thought it'd be fun to read some poetry tonight. Um, Not really sure how long we're gonna go, and my cat just ate, so I'm sure he's gonna make his presence known with all of his meowing. Um, I'm gonna be reading from the book I read my daily poems from at the moment, which is Best Loved Poems of the American People. And yeah, so I guess it'd be fun to I thought it'd be fun to peruse some poetry, and we'll see what we can find here. Absolutely love poetry. I grew up with it. My mom was a poet, and not like a big famous one, but she loved writing poetry, and she really got me into reading poetry. So that's where that comes from. So let's see if we can find a good one to start us off here. It's really easy for me to get lost in this book. When I've done the daily poems, I will occasionally have a hard time picking one because I like perusing it, and then I'm like, oh wait, I'm actually trying to do something. So let's see if we can find a good one here. Oh, this one I think is a good one. This one is Sleep Sweet by Ellen Huntington Gates. Sleep sweet within this quiet room, O thou whoe'er thou art, and let no mournful yesterdays disturb thy peaceful heart, nor let tomorrow mar thy rest with dreams of coming ill. Thy Maker is thy changeless friend, his love surrounds thee still. Forget thyself and all the world, put out each garish light. The stars are shining overhead. Sleep sweet, good night, good night. A lot of these poems, or a lot of these poets, are around mid 19th century to early mid 20th century. This poetry book, at least in the early parts, there's a specific section that has to do with faith and reverence, but it's I don't want to say it's like heavy religious overtones or heavy spiritual overtones, but it's definitely there because it's part of that, really part of the lexicon of the mid 19th century, especially coming from the American poets. Let's see. Not that poets around the world at the time weren't religious or anything, but you really get that sense of that spirituality, or the religious side of it in mid 19th century, early 20th century. And now someone's car alarm is going off, which is great. We're trying to do a poetry reading. Yeah, so we've got like different sections. Like this next one's inspiration. That's where I read a lot of the daily poems out of the inspiration section of this book. Let's see here. Here's a fun one. A Bag of Tools by R.L. Sharp. Isn't it strange that princes and kings and clowns that caper in sawdust rings and common people like you and me are builders for eternity? Each is given a bag of tools, a shapeless mass, a book of rules, and each must make, ere life is flown, a stumbling block or a stepping stone. I also think poetry is really interesting because you don't get it in the daily poems. Maybe I should switch it up the way I film them, but because it's just me reading to the camera or reading in camera. But sometimes the way the stanzas are written are very interesting. When you see Like the way, for example, like looking at this poem, Becoming American, not to read it quick, but if you can look at kind of the way it's indented when it starts alternating here, it's really interesting, even just visually, to look at. I think there's one, I can't remember if it's in this book or not, but there's one that's, I think it's just called The Swan, and the poem is laid out to look like a swan. Like the stanzas are written in such a way that the image is a swan. I always think that's really interesting. Like some people nowadays might see it as a little gimmicky, but it's really interesting. I'll have to see if I can find that one at some point. If you're interested, you could just go look it up. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Alright, let's do this one. My Wage by Jessie B. Rittenhouse. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask, but once you have set the wages, why, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn, dismayed, that any wage I asked of life, life would have paid. By Jessie B. Rittenhouse. It's a really powerful poem to me, you know, knowing your worth. I don't like throwing around like capitalist society. I think it's very hoity-toity, and it's very, you know, it makes you sound like you're trying to be above everyone else and just highfalutin and all that. But it's interesting when you think about it in regards to capitalist society, you know, trying to know what you're worth and work towards that wage. Obviously, that's me looking at it from a very corporate standpoint. You know, obviously the poem is more saying you make your, you know, life what you make of it. So it's outside of corporate, but it also can be telling in a corporate setting, in the way that we see, you know, the economic issues of the working class today, to really know what you're worth, and to really ask for it and strive for that. Let's see. There's some other good ones here. I mean, they're all good, right? I don't think I'd go through this book and be like, oh my gosh, these are all such bad poems. Let's see. Oh, I always like this one. This one is A Very Minor Poet Speaks by Isabel, I think it's Vale. Could be Vale, but the two L's. Anyway. A glowworm in a garden prayed, I cannot glow, God. Thou hast made me an ache to glow. Thy stamp is on my kin. Each has a lamp, which as thou breathest through the night, goes down and up. I have no light. Unless thyself within him burn, how should thy crawling creature learn to trace his circle in the sand? Cast rayless from thy ray-filled hand, a thing not worth the maker's mark. Who builds a temple, leaves it dark, forgets the candle in the shrine. God, set me glowing, let me shine. Such a good poem. Sorry, I kind of butchered it. I didn't pre-read anything I'm reading tonight, so if I get through it with minimal stumbling, I will count that as a win. Let's see. Okay, here's a good one. I always really loved Ella Wheeler Wilcox. She has such beautiful poetry. This one is Worthwhile by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. It is easy enough to be pleasant when life flows by like a song, but the man worth while is one who will smile when everything goes dead wrong. For the test of the heart is the trouble, and it always comes with the years, and the smile that is worth the praises of earth is the smile that shines through tears. It is easy enough to be prudent when nothing tempts you to stray, when without or within no voice of sin is luring your soul away. But it's only a negative virtue until it is tried by fire, and the life that is worth the honor on earth is the one that resists desire. By the cynic, the sad, the fallen, who had no strength for the strife, the world's highway is cumbered today. They make up the sum of life. But the virtue that conquers passion, and the sorrow that hides in a smile, it is these that are worth the homage on earth, for we find them but once in a while. Such a good poem. Poems that tell a story, these tend to be longer ones. So I don't know if I'll read any of these tonight. Although maybe I should because it's a longer format. But they're very good. Really interesting. They don't, obviously not as long as some of the older, like your Greek epics and everything, but they're very good. Maybe I'll do a couple of those. I would want to reread, or I would want to read some of these first before doing them on video, because otherwise I have a tendency when I read, once I start to stumble, I really stumble. So maybe I'll do a night where I read some poems that are these longer ones, but I pre-read it. Oh, and this is one of the things I was talking about before. I really like this this poem called "Beautiful Snow." The way that between the stanzas it has the the dancing, flirting, skimming along. It's just a really interesting format. It's really just interesting to me. We can do this one quick. The Ship That Never Returned by Henry C. Work. On a summer's day when the sea was rippled by a soft and gentle breeze, a ship set sail for a harbor laden to a port beyond the seas. There were fond farewells and loving signals, while her form was yet discerned, but they knew not 'twas a solemn parting, for the ship has never returned. Did she ever return? No, she never returned, and her fate is yet unlearned. And for years and years fond hearts have been waiting for the ship that never returned. Said a feeble youth to his aged mother, I must cross the wide, wide sea, for they say, perchance, in a foreign clime, there is health and strength for me. 'Twas a gleam of hope mid a maze of danger, and her heart for her youngest yearned, so she sent him forth with smiles and blessings in the ship that never returned. Such a good poem. Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, I believe. If you're interested in this one, I did a reading of this one like a year ago. I know I'm just starting to get the channel going again, but I did do a reading of that one. And I did, for those, I had some like sound effects with them to like kind of try and liven them up. Not liven them up as if they really needed it, but like just give you more for a visual, like hearing the musket balls and stuff like that. So if you're interested in stuff like that, let me know, because I think they're fun to make, but they just didn't really get a lot of views, and I was doing some other stuff, so I really kind of stepped away from the channel. But anyway, anything you guys are interested in as far as readings, or what kind of poems you'd like, or specific poems you'd like read, or short stories or anything like that, I would love comments for me to read and go through, because I'm open for anything. I love reading. I love poetry. I love everything to do with it. So if you have any suggestions, I am more than happy to read and learn and, obviously perform them, because I think reading is fun. Let's see. Hope you like the little ASMR of the page turnings and stuff. Let's see here. This one's a good one too. The Sailor's Grave by Eliza Cook. Our bark was out far, far from land, when the fairest of our gallant band grew sadly pale and waned away, like the twilight of an autumn day. We watched him through hours of long pain, through long hours of pain. But our cares were lost, our hopes were vain. Death brought for him no coward alarm, for he smiled as he died on a messmate's arm. He had no costly winding sheet, but we placed a round shot at his feet, and he slept in his hammock as safe and sound as a king in his lawn shroud marble bound. We proudly decked his funeral vest with the English flag upon his breast. We gave him that as the badge of the brave, and then he was fit for his sailor's grave. Our voices broke, our hearts turned weak, hot tears were seen on the brownest cheek, and a quiver played on the lips of pride as we lowered him down by the ship's dark side. A plunge, a splash, and our task was o'er. The billows rolled as they rolled before, but many a rude prayer hallowed the wave that closed above the sailor's grave. You can tell I come back to this page a lot because of how the page is creased. Let's see. Could tell a lot of this book is devoted to the poems that tell a story. Not that that's a bad thing. All right, let's see. Then you have Faith and Reverence, 4th section. Let's see here. There's also a lot of unknown or anonymous poets in here, which I always find interesting. I love that some unknown poems are, according to this book, some of the best loved of the American people when this was printed, which it's actually a good question. When was this printed? Selected by Hazel Fellman. Copyright 1936. That's when this was this was published. So that gives you an idea some of the poems that are around. Home and Mother is another section. Let's see, let's try this one. Like Mother, Like Son by Margaret Johnson Grafflin. Do you know that your soul is of my soul such a part that you seem to be fiber and core of my heart. None other can pain me as you do, dear, as you, dear, can do. None other can please me or praise me as you. Remember the world will be quick with its blame, if shadow or stain ever darken your name. Like mother, like son, is a saying so true, the world will judge largely the mother by you. Be yours then the task, if task it shall be, to force the proud world to do homage to me. Be sure it will say, when its verdict you've won, she reaped as she sowed, lo, this is her son. Childhood and youth is another section. We're getting to the shorter sections of the book here now. I apologize for the baby crying. He's only a month old at this point, so kind of to be expected. So not sure how much longer we're going to go here. Let's see if we can find one or two more here. Yeah, and the next section is patriotism and war. That's another thing that I think is interesting is you get, back in these days, you have this poem called In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. Then you have a poem in reply to that poem. And then you even have a second reply. This first one's by John Mitchell, and then you have a second one by J.A. Armstrong. So I always think that that's interesting too. You could kind of see it in today. You know, an equivalent would be something like when rappers get into it with each other through their music. You know, like how many tracks has Eminem obliterated rappers in. I don't think that's really what the poems are doing, but it's interesting. What's this section? Humor and whimsy. This one is always so funny to me, like humor and whimsy poems, because I never read them that way. I'm very stoic when it comes to reading, so it helps that I know the poem is a whimsy or funny poem, but I always read so serious, so I have a hard time with when I read something that's supposed to be funny in text, like on a page or something. I always take it so seriously. Let's see if we can find at least one more here. Memory and grief. That's another section I tend to read. This is more my speed, memory and grief. Lucy by William Wordsworth. She dwelt among the untrodden ways, beside the springs of Dove, a maid whom there were none to praise, and very few to love. A violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye, fair as a star when only one is shining in the sky. She lived unknown, and few could know when Lucy ceased to be, but she's in her grave, and oh, the difference to me. This one, Death is a Door by Nancy Bird Turner. Death is only an old door set in a garden wall. On gentle hinges it gives at dusk, when the thrushes call. Along the lintel and green leaves, beyond the light lie still. Very willing and weary feet go over that sill. There is nothing to trouble any heart, nothing to hurt at all. Death is only a quiet door in an old wall. Let's see. Let's try and find one more here. Nature is another section in this book. Let's do this one. Who Loves a Garden by Louise Seymour Jones. Who loves a garden finds within his soul life's whole. He hears the anthem of the soil while ingrates toil, and sees beyond his little sphere the waving fronds of heaven clear. I think that's all we're going to do tonight. Obviously, super brief look at this book. And I'll be reading from it for the daily poems for a little while at least. But thank you all so much for watching. Like I said earlier, if you have any suggestions for poems you'd like read, or if you'd like even like a specific genre of poem, I'm more than happy to look into that. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. And I hope I see you in the next one.